Hello everybody, we have to talk about our friend 3i Atlas again, and today it's that offset bright spot that still haunts researchers that we need to talk about, and it has been visible in quite early images. And when they first saw it, of course they thought, yeah, it's for sure a natural comet and that's just image problem, quality problems. But then, as we now have so many other images, they quickly realized, oh, wait a minute, that is actually a real problem and it's really there. And after my last video about 3i Atlas with the CIA, that is basically denying information about 3i Atlas, saying it's classified. I hope you have seen that video. It'll blow your mind. That is really a crazy story. Why would the CIA take the time and effort to release a letter saying that 3i Atlas is classified when NASA tells us nothing to see here, case closed, it's just a natural comet? So for a piece of rock, you don't need to classify information, don't you? Unless there is something else. And that fuels us a little bit, I have to say. But we don't want to put on the tinfoil hat. We want to stay scientific and look at the facts. And of course, discuss what this is, like Harvard professor Avi Loeb does. And it's kind of stunning that nobody really addresses all these anomalies. Depending on how you count them, I think we at least have 17 that are still unexplained to this day. So just to say it's a natural comet without telling us, okay, why is the antitail like this? Why did we see this, this, and that? I've reported all about that, guys. I'll put the playlist of Atlas in the end screen, but I'll put also the CIA video in the end screen because that came unexpected. I saw it and I'm like, what? I can't believe it. But let's get back to the bright spot because that is also very, very interesting. And we see this early image of 3i Atlas, right? That scientists can't really explain. We know a coma that didn't behave like a normal comet. That is what classifies 3i Atlas. And even early on already, 3i Atlas showed signs that it was not shedding material in this normally chaotic way. This is how natural comets shed their material. Chaotic, nothing is planned, nothing is directed. So normal comets, they shed it in an isotropic way, how most icy bodies do when they're first heated by the sun, the closer they come to the sun, right? But what we see here, even in the early image, and let's look at this early image because that's, now that we know so far about 3i Atlas, it's interesting to see how that developed. So the brightness on this image here is sharply concentrated with a steep gradient on one side and then a sudden fall off on the other side. And this asymmetry is now a recurring theme. And what is also highly, highly interesting is that we have two jets that show perfect symmetry. These are the jets. We're talking about the Coma here. The video about the jets that I just released is also kind of mind-boggling. And I called this video, can you explain this? And I said, NASA, please explain this. They don't. And now the CIA says it's classified. Watch that video. It's in the end screen. I read the letter for you. I show you the letter. So the more recent images, right, that we're seeing of 3i Atlas, the latest one is from December 30th. Especially these processed observation, they reveal, in addition to the mystery of the coma, these structured jets and also rotating emission features that look kind of, I say strange. I don't want to say unnatural, but that's what it is. We can't sugarcoat it, right? So all this confirms to us that the object has preferred directions of activity. We want to word this carefully. Preferred directions of activity. We do not say we don't know what's going on with my tongue, guys. I was up very, very late until like 5:30 a.m. to be able to release the CIA Atlas video for you guys, because I thought it's so important. You need to see this. So I guess I need to get to running temperature here. So we don't want to say directed activity because that sounds too scary, although we could say it because this is how it looks in the processed images. So what basically looked like a washed out blob months ago now aligns eerily precise and well with today's sharply resolved and elongated optical and radio profiles. You know, these images, they are using filters to be able to have a better insight. So what we can say is now, for the early images, this wasn't an immature view of a comet that is still waking up. It was an early glimpse of an object with built-in geometry. It's just there, right? So why did I say that offset bright spot still haunts researchers? What do I mean? Well, it's one of the most curious features in this image that we see here. It's the compact bright point that is sitting like near the edge of the larger globe. And at the time when this was first discovered, yes, with the first images, it could have been written off as like a background star or like a processing artifact, right? Could be other things. But, and here this is the interesting thing, follow-up images and discoveries and astronomy, they strongly suggest that this brightness, it did not go away. If it was just a star and 3I Atlas is moving on, then this should fade, right? By the way, this is the current location of 3I Atlas on December 6th when this was taken. It's on its way to Jupiter. So again, the brightness did not go away. It was, how can we say, co-moving with 3I Atlas. It was coming with it, basically. And if we look at today's data, what we're getting in, every day we're getting in new data, new images. It takes a while to get them off their orbiters, off their spacecraft that have taken them. So 3I Atlas brightest emissions, we see that now they do not always align with the presumed center of mass. What does that mean, guys? So instead of doing that, they appear to migrate as the object is rotating around its own axis. And guys, this is consistent with persistent jet-like structures rather than this random outgassing. We went into detail about how random outgassing should look versus how it looks with 3I Atlas. Again, playlist, guys, is in the end screen. So seen in that light right now, so this image, this early image, if we look at it now for us, that we have trained ourselves now what 3I Atlas is, it looks less chaotic and it looks more like a blurred snapshot of a structured, and these are not my words, these are other scientists, not only Avi Loeb, these are other scientists that are saying this. It looks like a structured engine caught mid-cycle. And again, nobody is basically denying this. So did this image tell us something before we were even ready to listen, is the question that some scientists are asking. So yeah, in hindsight, actually, yes, it told us several things that we have now confirmed with current imaging and observations, right? The objects, interstellar objects, activity is directional. This is what's still the big mystery. It's directional, it's not uniform, and this brightness, it is concentrated, not diffuse. And the emission that is coming off of 3I Atlas appears offset and structured, not centered and random. We know, and we have the emissions basically on both poles of 3I Atlas, and before and after perihelion. But let's get back to the Coma. The Coma does not expand like evenly with solar heating, like normal comets do. And now that we have better images, we have sharper images, we have more processed images, they're showing elongated profiles. They're showing these symmetric jet alignments and groupings that we've talked about, and resolved radio emission that is larger than the instrumental beam. So it fit cleanly into the narrative that now in hindsight, this early image already hinted at. And we can say it was a first impression that actually turned out to be accurate. So we should be very careful with just saying, and that's what Harvard professor Avi Loeb is saying, we should be very careful to say, it's just a comet, when we can't explain why it has so many things that comet physics, as we know it right now, cannot explain. And we know that early assumptions, especially in astronomy, they're often wrong. But in the case of 3I Atlas, actually, this image that we have here may have been one of the rare exceptions. So what's going on? Why is the CIA making such a mystery about it? If they want this to go away, they could have just said, hey guys, we don't have any data about this. It's just a comet. It's not of our interest. But instead, they're telling us it's classified. That, of course, right, is kind of strange. So really, what once looked like an odd overexposed anomaly now reads as the opening frame of a much weirder, stranger, larger story, and the story of 3I Atlas, an interstellar visitor that's not coming from our solar system and still and continuously refuses to behave like all these countless other comets that astronomers thought that they already understood. So they should not have, I have to say, arrogance to say, we know everything, this is nothing to see here. 3I Atlas, as you saw, it's on its way to Jupiter, continues its journey through the solar system, and then after that onward into interstellar space, if it doesn't change trajectory again, right? So yes, this image, can we learn from this when we see the next interstellar object? Yes, because maybe sometimes the truth shows itself early on, long before we have the final verdict or the final data, high resolution images, or, and this is important, the courage and the confidence to name it. The only guy that I have found that has the courage and is constantly doing it is Harvard professor Avi Loeb, and he's not a tinfoil hat guy. If you look at his bio, at his vita, he's very, very experienced. And he's kind of wondering that nobody's taking this serious, but his comment to the CIA story was, well, I've been warning them early on that, it might be a black swan event, and maybe they listened to me. That's why they classified it. Maybe they have looked into it. I don't know, guys. I'm trying to find out, and I'm on the pulse with you for this. I hope you liked it. Really, guys, check out the videos in the end screen, and I hope to see you there in a second. If you want to keep me going, guys, it's highly appreciated. Link is in the description. You can fill me up with coffee, keep my machine running, and I hope you're doing great. I hope you started great into the new year, and again, see you here in a second. Bye-bye.